My name is Alan Patrick. I was the community manager for the D&D Adventurers League until very recently, and I've transitioned out of that role, and now I am the resource manager along with Claire Hoffman. Every now and again, I will do this really crazy light rig up here in my office, and we'll take a look at some new products. I haven't done that in quite some time. The last one I did was the Beetle and Grimm Platinum Edition of Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and I just got a new thing actually yesterday. So as you can see by this unshaven face, I was at a convention all weekend, but the hosts at that show at ZegeCon in Novi, Michigan, they were kind enough to bestow upon me this thing. Now, this thing is massive, and I realize that this might be backwards on your screen because video is hard. This is the Icons of the Realms. It's from WizKids. This is the Falling Star. It is it's a giant sailing ship that ties along with a recently announced product coming out later this year. In fact, just a couple of months from now, called Ghosts of Saltmarsh. It's a nautical themed adventure. And wow, that is dancing all over the place. But yeah, it is a nautical themed adventure that will have some pretty interesting ramifications for the campaign going forward. I'm very excited to be able to talk about more news on that front soon. But in this particular case, I just figured we'd do a little bit of an unboxing here. And there's about 18 pounds of tape. Tape. Also doesn't help that all of my knives are currently missing and my minis supplies are on a shelf somewhere. Alright, so inside that box was another box. Go figure. The outer one was just the shipping shell, in this case from GTS. And this big guy is going to have some interesting stuff. I've been looking forward to getting this ship since I first heard about it. Saw the production model, basically like the beta version of it, about a year ago. It was an unpainted version. It was a photo that was sent out by some of the artists at WizKids, and then at one of the national events where they bring in retailers and just talk about upcoming products and stuff. And in here, we have a whole lot of stuff. So this thing is jam-packed. There's all sorts of stuff in here. We'll just go ahead and break it out bit by bit. Of course, there's my favorite thing, I guess, the silica gel. Everyone needs one of those. Don't give it to your pets. As I move that, looks like there's some cloth sails. Come here, you. So we have cloth sails. We have some pretty detailed masts, and I mean that's pretty big. I'm not a small guy, and this thing, I mean, if there was ever a maritime Harry Potter movie, this might be the wand. Looks like we get a couple of those because the Falling Star is a massive work. So with the top pieces gone, this box is it's a bit over 3 feet long, and then we have the ship. And it's in all sorts of protective clamshells. So a whole lot of that, and then looking in the bottom of the box is now empty. Looks like we have some replacement inserts. The replacement inserts are the deck So you can see it's got the grid layout. You can see the stairs that lead down. In its own separate bag, we have the wheel, very important part of the ship. Of course, I'm very weak on my nautical terms right now, so we'll call it because it's a long weekend. And start removing some plastic packaging, of which there is quite a bit. Interestingly, there's no twist ties like you normally find. And we have the Falling Star. Talk to your retailer for details. Not sure why they're asking me to talk to my retailer for details, because this insert's on the ship that I already bought. But, I mean, WizKids has a pretty decent expansion line. There's all the unpainted minis and the terrain features, dungeon dressing stuff that they're starting to get into. It's a pretty cool lineup, and they're all pretty affordable. The ship is the most expensive thing I've ever gotten from WizKids, and even that, for the size of it and the detail, I'm not worried. Yeah, I'm just throwing boxes around. It's one of those days. So, getting this this thing out of all of its packaging, it's pretty big. It's the ship itself is a bit over 2 feet. It comes with a deck layout that's pretty well detailed. You can see some of the resolution there. You've got the staircases. You can see the door that goes back through. You've got the portholes in the side that actually open up. You've got the masthead, the dragon there, along with the anchors. Let's see what we got. We begin to take all the things out. So there are a lot of sails. Go figure, it's a big ship. And we have the 2 masts. One is slightly smaller than the other. Something that is interesting to note. I'm gonna go ahead and shake these out. I'm sure there's an easier way to do this in production, but right now it's just an unboxing. But you have the deck that can actually be removed inside. You peek through, you have a working door, and there's outlines of 2 cabins in there, so you can actually bring encounters to the interior of the ship, which is pretty cool. Looking on the back of the ship, we have the same thing. We have another functioning door back here. And once again, you can kind of see the interior. This one doesn't have outlines for other chambers, but you're a DM. You can probably adjust that yourself. So, I'm going to go ahead and put these back together. And, oh, that's pretty cool. So something I was not aware of, take a look at the base of that. Looks pretty normal. we take a look at the deck of the ship, you can see the locations where the masts are supposed to go on. We take it, they're magnetized. That is a significant relief. And I know that as my players jostle the table around, much like how I'm jostling the table with the camera on it, this will save me a whole lot of headache from having to reset encounters when sails and masts and all sorts of stuff go down. So let's see if we can get this big thing put together. We got a couple of great big things here. Man. See if there's an installation guide or instruction sheet, which of course there's not. So we're gonna kind of figure this out as we go. Now the masts, or the sails rather, do have some keys that'll help identify where they're supposed to go and how they're supposed to be mounted. I just have to be smart enough to figure it out, and we'll see if that happens. It's been a long couple days. Well, wonders never cease. I actually got one of them. Some of these appear to be pretty tight fits. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing since their manufacturer is basically expecting you to run an active game. Minis moving around and things being jostled and so on. We'll go ahead and rotate that back. Trying to get some direct lighting myself on this. There is that. And we have that, which will go up on the prow. Extend that over the masthead just a little bit further. And I mean, everything else on this ship moves, so I will admit that I did just try and move the wheel. Unfortunately, that did not move. I'm not going to force it because I don't want to break stuff. But what is kind of impressive is the level of detail that's gone into the rope. You can kind of see how it even comes down off the spool and into the boards below. I mean, that would be so it can, of course, control the rudder. And this one, unlike the masts, this part isn't magnetized. So that's just something that would have to sit around on your ship. You'd have to make use of it as your game sees fit. Now, this thing, it is important to note that the rudder does actually move. And for intents and purposes, that's it with everything set up. It was pretty easy straight out of the box. There's a whole lot of really cool detail, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing this hit the table, whether it's for Ghosts of Saltmarsh or for some other game. Trying to see if I can find a reference photo real quick. One with the sails actually unfurled. It looks like all the actual photos are not going to be what I'm looking for, but it did indicate that I got my masts in the wrong direction. I was never an Eagle Scout or anything. I'm sure that's painfully apparent now. So we've got our ship. We've got sails. I'm just gonna pop these out. See if there's a quick way to undo these that doesn't involve me destroying everything. If I don't have to cut stuff, I'd really prefer not to. Again, the time and detail that they put into this, I at least want to try and respect that. This makes for a great video. Just watch me wrestle with sails. Yeah, it's good times. And does not appear to be the case. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to go ahead and cut these. Yeah, without the magnet, the masts don't actually like to stand up on their own. Excuse me. Before I cut stuff, just want to hit their website right quick. Yeah, so oddly, it appears that the ship is actually not intended to have the sails unfurled. I mean, I could. There's no ribbing to hold everything in place, and I'd have to figure out how to retie it. So we'll go ahead and leave that alone for now. But taking a look at it, it just looks like everything is held together internally, so it's all tied. You can see how they're pretty tightly bound. It just looks like they're all intended to stay completely put together for the time being, and honestly, it's probably not a bad thing. I've got a toddler in the house, and he doesn't get into my office very often, but it'll happen. And I know as soon as it does, he's going to want to play with all the daddy's toys because they're way more interactive than his. So anyway, we have this big thing. Whoop. Hit the Kraken. Magnets are not terribly strong, and that's just fine. Ship is not intended to hit a whole lot of turbulent waters, especially at the game table. So all in all, there is an amazing level of detail on this. I'm very, very pleased. This thing is huge. It's going to be a challenge to figure out where I'm going to store it in here. As you can see, the shelves behind me are already pretty full with all sorts of various other things. The replacement deck tiles. Let's just pop these open right quick before we call it a day. So these replacement tiles are intended to be put out next to the ship for your various tactical encounters. Go ahead and lay these down for this segment. Get out of here. So there are two that ship with it, and we have this pretty lean and straightforward subdeck, and then we have the very bottom where you can see the post for the masts where it would go all the way through. These are two-sided. If you notice, You have your gridless for your more narrative things, your visual setups, and then you have your gridded combat for the more tactical-minded groups. All in all, with the content that is already out there, I mean, gamers have always loved the narrative stuff for nautical combat. It's really, really handy to have a size-appropriate visual element. For the Adventurers League, we just released an epic at Winter Fantasy that deals with ships of all types, and there's some pretty cool stuff in there. I can see, I can imagine that some events may try and work these in as really cool visual elements, and I think that would be awesome. So if you're watching this and you're an event organizer, I'd love to see those. Take some photos, send them into community at dndadventuresleague.org. We'd love to rebroadcast those with your event location and kind of just show off, like, look what's being created and awesome out in the community. I know I have some things that I'm currently working on for the rest of this year, and keeping spoilers out of it. I may just have to find a way to work this ship in there. There's a lot of potential with this. It's a beautiful set. So thank you for listening to me ramble along for the last 20-ish minutes, and I hope you have awesome tales and happy gaming from here on out. Thank you.